Omni-Man should not be redeemed after everything that he did. Redemption in fiction can best be described as a double-edged sword. If done well, it could easily add an extra layer of depth and intrigue onto the story in question. But if handled poorly, then it could genuinely have a potential to completely annihilate the tension and stakes of said story.
I miss my wife.
Let me play a sad song for you on the world's smallest violin.
The Joker has been agreed to be one of DC's most irredeemable characters. A man who has literally committed inconceivable amounts of crimes, taken the lives of thousands of innocent people, and yet, Omni-Man, someone who has done far worse. A man who has taken the lives of hundreds of thousands of innocent people, not even counting the billions of alien lives that he's also taken, is the one who's in the process of getting a redemption arc. I mean, for a character that's existed for over 80 years, I feel like I shouldn't be able to count the number of times that he's even been considered to get redeemed on only one hand if it wasn't for a good reason. Nolan did so many unspeakably evil things while on the verge of completing his Viltrumite mission that by the end of season 1, he easily graduated from being an anti-hero to becoming an unstoppable antagonist, kind of like Homelander from The Boys.
Fastest man alive, what a fucking joke.
I want to open up this discussion by clarifying that I completely love the direction that the writers are taking Omni-Man's character. I understand that we were basically locked into figuring out a way to make his story arc at least somewhat more believable than it was portrayed in the comics, and so far I think that they're doing a pretty great job. The question that I really want to pose to our cozy little community here is, where do we as a society draw the line? What makes us argue that redeeming the Joker, a mentally unstable sociopath, would be going too far, but at the same time decide to give the exact same treatment to someone who's objectively far worse? Someone who without a shadow of a doubt understood exactly what we were doing and yet chose to do it anyway. The only thing standing in the way of us getting a brilliantly handled Joker redemption arc is the desires of the writers themselves. But the real question is, does he even deserve one? You guys already know that I wholeheartedly support the path that Invincible as a franchise has chosen to walk down, and I think that most of you would agree with my reasoning as well. But should we? Should we really be comfortable with rooting for characters like the Joker and Nolan, hoping for them to get fully blown redemption arcs or change despite everything that we know that they've done?
Let me help you. No. It's far too late for that.
After Mark learns the truth about his father during the season 1 finale, they have this huge fight that ends up costing the lives of hundreds of thousands of people because of Omni-Man's selfish desire to convert his son to the Viltrum Empire. The fascinating thing about watching this fight play out for the first time was seeing how it would actually end. We all knew that Mark wasn't anywhere near on his father's level in terms of combat skill and brutality going in. Of course, it turned out that the person who would successfully exile Omni-Man from the planet was Omni-Man, stricken by a wave of crippling guilt when he realized that he failed his family and most importantly his wife. Now, I'm not implying that Nolan's love for Mark wasn't also a key factor in him regaining his composure and leaving the planet, but Debbie was the one who taught him the value in loving his son in the first place.
Guess who's finally getting his powers?
Are you sure?
Oh no!
In all likelihood, Nolan most likely only viewed Mark as another tool to be used by the Viltrum Empire, which is why he decided to resume his mission to conquer the Earth the moment that Mark unlocked his powers.
You did, but you wouldn't like what you had become.
The Invincible community has been split on season 2 for the most part. While some fans absolutely loved the way that the Angsham Levy storyline played out, a vocal minority also thought that it wasn't as impactful of a storyline as the Omni-Man murder mystery featured in season 1, and I couldn't disagree more. I'd argue that season 2 surpasses season 1 in nearly every aspect, and most importantly, it felt like a natural progression of the overarching plot. While we followed Mark and learned that his greatest fear was becoming his father, we also learned that Nolan's greatest fear at its core was becoming his son, someone who would defy the Viltrum Empire, and then we watched both of these incredibly broken characters completely lose themselves and face their fears head on. During the mid-season finale, Nolan ends up tricking our boy Mark into meeting him on the planet Fraxor, in hopes that he would be able to help out in the fight against an incoming Viltrumite attack. Nolan would tragically be proven wrong, but this encounter between father and son would only amplify their very real concerns. Nolan, after being the reason for the fall of an entire planet and most of its people, breaks down and despises how this loss made him feel, choosing to take his anger out on his own son while in the heat of the moment. During the heated battle, Mark fails to deal the finishing blow to Fuller, causing him to get critically wounded, resulting in Nolan's swift defeat. Guilt is an unforgiving emotion, and while Nolan would feel guilty for caring about the Fraxons in a way that he didn't even know that he would be capable of, Mark would feel guilty for being unable to effectively stop the Viltrumites from completing their mission on the planet without resorting to taking their lives. For both father and son, their ultimate internal conflict would lead them to decipher the meaning behind the true value of a life. Angstrom Levy as a villain was birthed out of Mark's potential to be evil. He was cursed to only be able to view Mark as a reflection of his father Nolan.
So arrogant, just like your father.
Angstrom Levy was never supposed to be the point of season 2 of Invincible. He was written to be the breaking point in Mark's nightmare, the first life that he'd ever take, and definitive proof not only to himself but to Cecil and Debbie that he was right to be worried about becoming his father. Angstrom Levy forced Mark to make the ultimate sin by taking his life and simultaneously made Debbie, if only for a moment, question her son. On top of being called a pet by her husband before losing him, having her only son constantly getting hospitalized, being practically forced to raise her husband's new son, and learning that there isn't a single person on the planet who could genuinely understand what she's been through, Debbie contemplates taking her own life. Nolan Grayson drove his wife and son to the point of no return, considering options that we wouldn't have ever thought of in a perfect world, but they were forced to learn the hard way that it's not a perfect world.
Things are gonna be different now, aren't they?
I have to get better. I have to learn how to control myself.
Robert Kirkman, the ingenious mind who wrote and directed the Invincible comic series himself, mentioned in an interview with Entertainment Weekly that Omni-Man's story should not be thought of as a redemption arc, and I'd have to say that I'm even more intrigued for what's coming in this adaptation. Nolan at the end of the day ruined the lives of everyone around him, and while I'm always going to believe that a character like this should never get a redemption arc, it seems like that's not where the story is headed anyway. We'll soon someday be able to understand why Nolan bizarrely chose to continue being loyal to Viltrum during the finale of the first season, even though he clearly always had one foot outside of the door. But understanding and redeeming are two very different things. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and please consider subscribing. You're also definitely going to love this next video where we discuss Batman's outdated no-kill rule. Thanks for watching, take care.